reading some news, and there's a lot of controversy about this spot in the Middle East, Jerusalem. Yeah, it seems to be a special place, and there's a lot of politics going on around there because of Jerusalem. In fact, people have to weigh in because of this topic being the capital of either Israel, or part of it, West Jerusalem is in Israel, East Jerusalem is in Palestine, in the Palestinian territory. Now, I begin to ask, is it that some people are, because without being anti-Semitic, I want to say something about the Jewish race. They say it's a privileged race, the chosen race, and so there's this lot of dissension. Some people don't want them to exist, and all the like. So when we think about the new presentation, or what we are learning here, and trying to live, to practice, it is in stark contrast to the pronouncements coming out of the mouths of politicians and the Israelites and the Palestinians and all the like. So, what is your take on this specialness of a place and people in this world?
Well, okay, as long as this is happening on the earth, which is, these are created ideas, and people make choices. It's really that simple, and things come to be what they do. It's just that simple. And in this case here, and you mentioned the idea is that the label has been thrown out there, centuries ago. These are the chosen people. Okay, it all sounds good. These are stories, and etc. And kind of like the idea where Jesus is Son of God. So what does that make everybody else? Okay, nothing. Slaves that need to bow down and do whatever. And so, so what we see today is a huge marketing ploy of distortion. That's really all it is. Because as this is going on in the physical, with whatever is going on, it's purposely pushed forward, pushed out there, and ideas are thrown here and there. People say this or that, the politicians, whatever. We know they're bought off. And so, again, it's to keep people distorted and dumbed down. And if they're destroyed because they don't care if they're destroyed, because they'll come back into a new body and they'll start over, and they can be reprogrammed and reconditioned again because they're becoming too aware. And actually, through these experiences with what's going on in their Syria, the Gaza Strip, and all this nonsense, which is in Jerusalem, when you first said that word, when you first opened your talk there, what I heard was Jello serum. Okay. You said it in a particular way, and it sounded like Jello serum, and that's really what it is. And so, it's all purposely planned. There's no mistake. And again, you look at the birds in the trees or in their nests or whatever. Are they doing this stuff? Do you see birds flying around as an example? I like to use the birds as an example. Do you see them all distorted? You look at a bee's nest, and bees are crawling all over each other to do their job, to build the honeycombs, bring in the honey, the pollen, whatever. They're crawling all over each other all the time. And do they have this distortion or this, all these things going on, anger and whatever? It's like, hey, you're in my way, your wings tickled my nose, or, no. They're all fine. They're just doing their thing. This is all purposely planned, and this, again, is where we're into the galactic side, as worldwide educators, because one thing affects another, and so this is why we're into so many areas, and we're not just staying with one thing like the corporation does, or, others do. It's business as usual, because they are businesses, and there's an aspect of that here. But again, that's all planned distortion. It's purposely planned to get the world to react and to get them tap-lined and keep them unaware, because people are becoming more aware, and especially now that we're into really the galactic position. We've taken this a step at a time, and as Rebazar has brought certain individuals in, each one of you that have come here have been chosen, but it's your choice what you do with this opportunity. And so, especially as Miss Claudia has come in here, and we've become familiar, and I started to recognize this right away, and so I took advantage of it, and now we're off into this galactic area, which really is affecting everything. And this is where even the people on the earth thinking it's the government, it's the bankers, it's the cabal and all that. Well, guess what? No, there's the bigger picture. And now last night we just did number 3 of the Orion Queen. And, to most people, this is going to be really far out science fiction. And so, again, what do we have here in the media out there? All these movies, these superhero movies and all this stuff like that, which people like. We all like it. I grew up with Superman, Green Lantern, etc. Yeah, these things are cool, and they do reflect these ideas. But at the same time, we're being doused with all these things because it's a phenomena all its own, and people like this. But, on the other end, they know that it's so-called fantasy. And so what we're bringing forth now, it all of a sudden, even to the galactic people that are with the Palladians and whatever, what we're presenting here seems like a fantasy. It's like, okay, we've been putting the Queen and others into the phantom zone, and this is very real on the real side because of their karma and what they're doing and the bigger effects. So what we're seeing in the physical here with all this nonsense with the so-called chosen people, okay, so that propaganda is used out there to ignite discrimination, hate, jealousy, whatever it is. They're going to ignite everything. They're just lighting off little bombs, and all of a sudden it's like, this is our land, and the God said that we're to have this, or whatever the idea is. These are just ideas that are out there causing the dissension, because again, the only way that basically, but it's not the only way, but this is what certain people, individuals think, that, okay, we have to cause distortion, we have to hide things, we can't tell people really what's going on, etc., so we can maintain control of the human farming and the masses here. And so that's really what we're seeing. That's why when when I see the news or what's going on, I see what's going on. It's so ridiculous. And they've really gone off the deep end. But, this is their plan. It's like hiring Trump to be the president. All this stuff is controlled and premeditated to be just, rather an idiot, just worse than all of them. People look at each president and they, as an example, they see what's going on. Well, Trump, again, but this is a setup for the next one coming in line, you see. So all this distortion that he's displaying, that way when he runs again, as an example, somebody like Hillary or whatever, who's even worse, is going to get in there and people will think, okay, she's better. So again, constant distortion, and that's what you're seeing, the live violence, and then people all over the world react They create these so-called humanitarian groups, thinking that, okay, this will fix this or whatever. But then you got a lot of con artists jumping on the bandwagon too, saying, send us $5 and we're going to help this cause. And so you've got everybody into the deception here and supporting it consciously and mainly unconsciously. And so again, what we're doing is showing people how to get through this deception. And you don't have to be tap line to it, but it's very easy to be sucked down with your personal self into these issues that have been created just to deceive others. That's what's going on. And at the same time, they don't want us to succeed with making sense of where we're at. So while we're on the earth, and, I decided to come here and do this with the boys and present something real because this is the adventure. It's not only, doing something that makes sense, but it's the adventure too. So each person decides, and I see people come and go because they get so wrapped up in this nonsense. It really has nothing to do with anything except it's a planned distraction. Just like all the red flags in the United States and all over the world and these bombings and like the Boston Marathon and all that. All these things are distractions, the school shootings. They're purposely done, get people to react, get them to do whatever, marches, demonstrations. It all equals nothing but more bitterness, harder times, and driving everybody into the ground where they're so sedated with nonsense they can't figure out their lives, and they just give up. And then they come back into a new life, a new body, and now it's going to be probably a clone or robotized body where they can more so control. So the end result is that we just call it the world controllers or the cabal, whatever, the Illuminati, doesn't matter. The royals, the governments, etc., the monarchy. Their whole thing is they are desperate and they are the most afraid. And this is one of the things that, as Claudia and I have been going through this, and we haven't let everything out because it's not necessary. And besides, there's more to come. And we want it to where it works out for everyone. And so, because a lot of people take it wrong, they just don't understand what's going on. And so, all this influence that's here, purposely planned distortion, because again, as you look in nature, look at the birds. All you have to do is look at the birds and the sun shining. I mean, is it going on with the birds? Are they doing the same thing? No, it's people making choices, and people can step back. They don't have to keep pushing forward, and as they do, it gets worse. You see, that's the whole thing. It only gets worse, but they're making the choice. They'll figure it out. And this is an age to where, with us here, the new wave here, making sense of things and, pointing out the real universes and the real guides and Revizar. This is why I created Walk with Revizar, because it's very important to put that out there as much as possible, because it really does point directly to the real guides and a real possibility. But again, most people have their personal life, so they want that first. So you're going to deal with it, and it's your choice. The world, I don't expect a change in the world. And even when we bring what we're bringing out, which is going to be very interesting to see how this comes out, the world, this is still going to take place here, because there's always going to be somebody out there that wants to try and control others. And as an example, a little history here, the Jesuits, everybody's got their name for their group. They were in and out of certain situations, and eventually they came back in, took over the church and whatever. And, there's more to it than that. I don't know all the whole history. It's kind of boring. I like the interesting parts. But again, they never stopped. And this is just how it is. That's one aspect. And these individuals, they don't stop. Just like the bankers, just like the Rothschilds funded the wars and the Revolutionary War. And, the original plan from Europe, they painted a pretty picture. It's like, well, let's go to the new land and you can have, and these were the cabal. They painted this pretty picture. It's like, well, get out of Europe and go to the new land. And, there you can have, your own religion, you can do whatever, etc. They created all that deception So they sent people over here to the United States, what became the United States within the last couple 250 years. It's not very long. It's not centuries and eons. They sent the front line over here to deal with the natives in the situation. That's what they do. They sacrifice these so-called immigrants to come here, go through what they did, the colonists, set it up, go through all the wars, the deception, the Revolutionary War, the Alamo, all these things, because their whole idea was to take over, which they did. Did the Indians have deeds? Did they own the land? No, but all of a sudden the Europeans come in, and now all of a sudden, they're the government. They have BLM land, Bureau of Land Management. They just take the land, whatever they want. The rest they sell to the little pilgrims. And at first they give it away, but after that, once you're there, now they start taxing you, etc. This is where we are today. Wherever you're at, you're taxed. All this stems from the same thing. It is planned deception, and we're seeing it all over the world. That's what it is. It appears as that one thing is different from another, but what is it that instigates these things? I always look behind the scenes, and for the most part, it's the same thing, and that is control and getting people to be submissive and to continually reincarnate unconsciously so they are the support system. As we demonstrate this, and this is really a big adventure that Claudia and I and Rebus are and the boys on the real side, and the true silent ones are bringing forward. It's a lot, but it's coming. And so the thing is that we're going to create a real demonstration, but more so than what we're doing here. But at the same time, there's still going to be this. There's still always going to be something out there. There's still going to be cockroaches underneath your kitchen cabinets. They're not going away. It's just how it is. And so this is an opportunity like never before, simply the new wave, to recognize this. And, I would say that, yes, learn to see what's going on in the world, but at the same time, let it be and focus on what we're doing. We don't have to, spread this drama around, just certain things, but we're narrowing it down to now the concerts and Walk with Rebazar, etc. We're narrowing it down. Let's narrow it down. We went through all these things and etc., the diets and all that. Well, goody. Again, all this stuff's one-dimensional. I'm just focusing on Rebazar and the concerts, and this is coming through, etc. People have to learn to get out of their personal lives a little bit because, again, you decide what comes first. And I've always decided that this comes first because the end result, it's a benefit for everybody. So shine like the sun, and etc. So I know that's pretty long, Charles. But again, these are issues. It's very simple that are created. And the cabal is always testing these issues. They really are, to see how people will react, and usually people will react. It's just like throwing a hook out there in the water with a worm on it. There's always going to be fish that are going to bite the hook, okay, and they're going to be hooked. And so it's better to be objective, but at the same time, if it affects you in some way, yeah, you take care of it. If it personally does, but if it doesn't, you just see it for what it is, because it is the choices of those people, and they're deciding their own fate. So we're here. They can, learn to understand a lot more and a lot better, and it's very real and wonderful. But for the most part, they've got their ideas of politics, religion, spiritual paths, and their education and their diplomas and their business world, which is all creating the biggest demise. So it's like, okay, have fun. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And so, again, what Ava and I are producing, it is the focus right now to what else is coming. But again, it's a step at a time. Not everybody's ready for it. And the world's not ready for it yet. So we got to do it a step at a time. And so we're coming into a new position here. I don't see the New Year's as meaning anything. It's just another day. But at the same time, things turn over, you might say, and people all of a sudden, they change their little attitudes or whatever. But that's free will. I don't determine that. I don't try and pre-think it. I'm always right now, and I just wait to see what happens. I do what I do, and I wait to see what happens. So they're making choices, Charles, and so are we. We're making choices, and we can always make better choices. That's the challenge. Yeah, I like the challenge and figuring it out. Yes, Charles, thank you for asking.